Hello. If you have clicked on this video, you are either going to be filling out an RN, LPN, perhaps an APRN application to be licensed with us, and this is just to give you a couple of tips, some guidelines. I won't be reading through the entire application. I won't be filling the whole thing out for you to watch. And we know that you can read the instructions. We suggest that you do so. It will definitely answer a lot of your questions. But I want to make sure that there are some things made clear that either we get a lot of questions about or that people spend a lot of time because they don't send in the right documentation and it costs them time processing their app. So those are the things we're going to be going over. First of all, they are fillable PDFs. So for example, you can fill them out like this. And many of you may type faster than I do. I will not type out the whole thing, as I said. You can still send them in by handwritten. Everybody does it. We won't reject them. So the first thing I want to make clear is that we do not issue paper licenses anymore. A lot of people are getting on board with this, but some people still want something to put in your wallet. And I apologize. It's just for security reasons. So right here, no longer issuing paper copies. The best thing to do for now is to go to our website. There is a license and certificate lookup box there. And you or your employer can look this information up there. The other good thing is to get on ball with nurses. Nurses is all across the country. Employers use it, nurses use it, we use it. And then by 2019 sometime, we are also expecting here at the Wyoming State Board of Nursing that we will not be using our own verification lookup box any longer. So nurses is going to be the way to go. Nurses is also the place that you can see your multi-state represented if you have a multi-state license, because it's not going to show up on our license box. It'll just say RN or LPN. So the next thing I want to double check on is those rules for multi-state licenses if you're applying. Everybody wants to know about multi-state licenses. So the most important thing is your primary state of residency. Everything is based on what state you reside in, what's your legal state. So if you don't know, if you're a multi-state, and if you don't know what you now have your primary state as, I would check nurses. Or call your home board where you got initially licensed and find out if they have you as a multi-state. We can also check if you just call us and we can check nurses for you. But it really pays to double check on that before you send in an application and spend some time, and it just takes a few seconds for us to verify everything for you. Now, a few other things just specific to the processing of applications themselves. They can take 45 to 60 days to process. That's all the way to a final application. So that's including the background check results. What we say is after we have the complete application and the money, give it 10 to 14 days of processing. Doesn't always take that long. If our volume is low, it'll be more fast than that. But it could be that long, and don't get concerned if you don't hear anything in 10 to 14 business days. So back to that multi-state. A lot of these questions are going to be about multi-state. You do have to be a permanent resident, like we said. What that means is you can't be moving here. It can't be theoretical. It can't be something that hasn't happened yet. You actually have to be here and be able to provide us with proof. And that proof will have to come in the form of either a driver's license in your application or something else like a voter registration card, perhaps, that kind of thing. If you have any questions on all those rules, definitely give us a call. In terms of the identification that you do send in, make sure that everything matches. So your lawful presence, copy of the Social Security card, that is necessary. The names do have to match. The only thing that makes sense if your name does not match is your birth certificate last name. If you're a lady, might not match your current name. That does happen. That's okay. So how long will we keep the applications? We will keep them a year after the date received. After that, they'll be scanned, but they will be shredded, and you will have to start again with submitting a new application and new fees. Now, regarding the fees, this is a big one right here. No refunds for an incomplete application or a withdrawn application. So if we get to the point where we actually accept the application and take your money, no matter what changes or no matter what might go your way in the process, there is not going to be a refund. So once again, if you have any questions about whether or not you should submit one, give us a call. And also do mail in the applications. Do not try to fax them. There is also no way to email them to us. You can't fill them out online and then submit them. They have to be mailed. Okay, going down here, you will have to submit some background check information, fingerprint cards for us. Local law enforcement can help you with that. They will give you the cards. We don't supply them. The most important thing to remember here to avoid processing delays is to fill out the entire card, every portion on it that you can answer for yourself. So there are places for your signature, your address, your name, where you were born, your height, your weight, personal questions like that that you should be able to answer. Those are the ones you need to answer. Other than that, you can go ahead and leave them blank or let the person who is processing your prints fill those out. Now, moving on to temporary permits. We have a lot of questions about temporary permits. They do cost $25, so please pay attention to that fee page when you're filling out your fee section. And if you have a question about whether or not you're eligible for a temporary, it's a good idea to call and check about that too, because the temporary permit fee is also not refundable if you end up not being eligible for one. Now, the other thing that affects your eligibility is your history disclosures. We'll get more on that when we actually get to that history page, but just to emphasize, it's very important that you make sure you have your history kind of set aside. Make sure you have some documents. Make sure you go through the things that might show up, like old arrests, things like that, and prepare some statements for those. Now, this is good, this segment right here, because I like to tell people to use it as a little checklist. Down here, make sure it will be a complete application. If it does not have all these items, it will not be considered complete. So if something doesn't apply to you, just put NA. We discussed proof of lawful presence means a Social Security card and one of the other forms. And you'll see this again in the other page. Official college transcript if this applies to you for exam or for endorsement. And it does have to be from the school. We cannot accept it from you even if it is in the envelope with the seal not broken. Make sure the appropriate fees there, of course. And if you are endorsing from another state, a verification of licensure from your original state. We'll get more on this as we keep going because there is a page specific to that in the application. And documentation for any yes answers in that history page. Again, we'll go over that more, but it is considered necessary for the application to be complete. Therefore, no temporaries could be issued without that documentation. And then last but not least, those fingerprint cards. So what I'm going to do now is break it down a little bit by exam versus endorsement. If you're in exam, the most important thing for you is how do you get your authorization to test to sit for that NCLEX? So a lot of this, like I said, just go ahead and read it. Make sure that you've included everything. But the way it's going to work is when we have your application, we will also check to see if we have your transcripts. And as long as we have a complete application with transcripts, we will go on to Pearson View to try to find you. If you have registered and paid your fee, we will be able to find you and make you eligible. And then they will send you an email within 24 hours with your ATT. So that's the perfect scenario. Of course, it can happen in a different order. Sometimes we'll get your transcripts first, or sometimes we'll get your application and not your transcripts yet. But that is how it has to be. We have to have the complete application and the transcripts before we can make you eligible. So if you're expecting an ATT before we receive those two things, you're not going to get it. And if you just need to call and check and find out if the transcripts got here first before you pay that fee, totally understand. Give us a call. Now, the endorsement, if you're coming in from another state, we still have to have a complete application, and that includes verification. So that's really the biggie for you guys, is to make sure your verification comes. I'll go into more detail about verifications when we get to that page in the application. If you're a relicensure, though, we should have your verification information already. We may very well already have your transcripts, so it's easy for you guys. You guys have to do your fingerprint cards again. You didn't used to, so pay attention to that. That's now a requirement. And then, of course, you have to meet a competency of some kind. So to go through the actual application, I'll just specify a few things that are confusing to some people. This reactivation here, that's not if you expired. That's if you actually went inactive for some reason. So if you expired and you want to go ahead and get your license back, you want to do relicensure right here. This is the temporary that we discussed. If you need one, go ahead and check the box. We cannot backdate it. So if we receive your application on May 1st and you ask for a temporary as of April 25th, we cannot do that even if you're eligible, but we can date it ahead. So we could say, okay, application wants a temporary for the 5th. That would be okay as long as you're eligible. Now, some points of difference in the past and something you want to pay attention to is double lines here for your addresses. We have a mailing and a physical address. That is because if you're applying for a multi-state, you cannot just give us a P.O. box. We must have a physical address, but we can certainly still use a P.O. box for mailing. So that's why there's 2 different address lines. Here's the information down below here about your lawful presence that we were discussing before. So you're going to necessary do the Social Security card, and then you can choose one of these others to include. Something I'm going to emphasize here is that we do get applications from people who have a Social Security card which says valid for work only with DHS authorization. If your Social Security card does say this, please provide us with that documentation from DHS that says you are allowed to work in the U.S. That will make things go a lot more quickly because it can cause some delays. Oh, let's keep going here. So to the competency section. If you are examining, you do not have to worry about this because you're not really using a competency. You're not doing endorsement or relicensure. So we know you're going to NCLEX, and that's all you have to worry about. If for some reason, say you're transferring from one state to another and you just passed your NCLEX in the other state recently, just within the past 6 months, then you can also use that as your competency, so it doesn't have to be one of these. Now, this one takes a lot of time for a lot of people. This is the verification step we spoke of before. This is where we ask you to list different licenses that you have in other states, whether or not it's active, and whether or not it's your original. We do need verification from your original state. That means the state that you NCLEXed in, because we need that exam verification. If you are no longer current in your original state, we will also need a verification from the state that you're current in. A lot of people are still current in their original state. That'll do just fine. Now, the employment, the only thing I really want to say here, because most people, I can handle this just fine, is just if you're with a travel agency, we don't need to know each of your assignments. You can just give us the length of time you've been with that agency working for them and the number of hours that you work, and that will be just fine. All right, thank you for hanging tight with me. Just a few more things, and I really hope this is helpful for you guys, or at least lets you know that you're on the right track if you haven't run into any of the snags that I've mentioned. This is a big page, though, this history page right here, because if you do not supply us with all of the information and the documents and the personal statements, we do have to pen the application, send you a letter, ask for more. We can't make you eligible. We can't do things like issue or forward you on to the next level of processing until we gather all of these. And there are some things that we're sticklers about. So make sure that you enter everything absolutely honestly, even if it was something that happened 25 years ago. Even if you're sure that it was expunged. For this one down here, say, have you ever been arrested? We get an awful lot of people who say, I thought that was supposed to be dropped or dismissed, so I didn't include it. The problem with that is that you will therefore be a failure to disclose, which puts you in a category of not being eligible for a temporary if that's what you were going for. And it doesn't matter if it was something very small and a long time ago. So just go ahead and answer very honestly and scrape together all the documentation you can get. If you have any questions about what will and will not count for documentation, go ahead and give us a call. We're happy to clarify to make sure that the process goes easier for you. A few things about the personal statement. There are supposed to be personal statements with any of these that you give us. A good personal statement should be detailed. It should have your name and the date that it happened, how it happened, why it happened, how it was resolved, perhaps what you learned from it, that kind of thing. And it should be signed and dated. Now moving on, this part down here is just that primary state of residency that we discussed earlier. Yes or no, and then you have to be able to supply us with proof if we do decide to check. You have to physically be here. Okay, moving down to this next page. Here's that verification page I referenced before. So once you've given us the primary state of your licensure, your original state where you NCLEXed, then you either will go on Nurses right here and pay to have your verification sent to Wyoming if your state is on Nurses, which most of them are, but not all. If your state is not on Nurses, you will use this form, fill out this top portion here, and then you're going to send it to them. Then they will forward something directly to us on your behalf. We cannot accept it from you. So if you send something to your state and they send it to you, you got to have them turn around and send it to us. A lot of states are emailing. That makes it a lot faster and easier for everyone. So ask them if that's an option for you. It'll help. And the big thing to focus on down on this page here, the fee page, is that if we don't have anything clarified, if there's a discrepancy, if there's something wrong, we cannot process the application. It's going to be held until we get a hold of you to get the fee straight. Things that we'll need are the zip codes of billing cards. We'll need the 3-digit codes of billing cards right here, or else we can't process a card. Note the $5 processing fee. We'll go ahead and tag that on even if you forget about it because it's $5. But background checks are mandatory for everyone, so don't forget about that one. And this is just your information about your fingerprint cards. So basically, we do not want to have to hold anybody's application longer than necessary. We want everybody to have a nice, easy, fast processing time. We're happy to help, but a lot of these things that we've been discussing will just make everything go more smoothly for you. So I hope that you found some answers here, and happy applying.